Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about Twitter censorship and how they have just uncensored me, mostly. I wanted to just, many of you are watching this on YouTube, watching the series, and I think it's good for you to see the extent to which I have been being censored here, but primarily, not necessarily primarily, but where I have greater insight into where it started and how long it's been going on has been occurring in Twitter. So I have, of course, been suspended 4 times. I've been permanently suspended once at Twitter. I appealed and got back in, but over the course of 20 months, I was labeled against my will sensitive content, the kind of label that porn stars will get, right? So of course this was because of my view on the COVID interventions and arguing against the efficacy and wisdom and ethics of the COVID interventions that these sensitive content was applied to me. And of course I've also had a couple videos here at YouTube, or you might be watching me on Rumble or Odyssey or Instagram or other places, but at YouTube a couple videos have been taken down as well, and I don't know what kinds of deboosting has been occurring at YouTube. Instagram also has been purposely censoring anything that mentions MASKS, and I've got side-by-side comparisons of that. But I just wanted to just cover the ways in which Twitter has been censoring me over the last 20 months. And you can see in this first visual here, this is the way in the top half that when you go to your settings and you look at privacy and safety or whatever it is, and you get to your tweets, it should have this little setting on the right, and you can click it, and then you can become sensitive. And so that's what you should do if you're involved in graphic photos or various kinds of graphic stuff that other children or shouldn't see. But what Twitter did was they set that for me very helpfully. They set it for me, and they made it, as you can see on the bottom here, it's been clicked, but it's unable for me to touch it. It's sort of gone dark, so to speak, and I was unable to touch it for 20 months. Thank you very much, Twitter. And of course, every time I would ask, I say, hey, you have to unset me. I'm not sensitive content. They say, well, I'm sorry, it's just permanent, and there is no appeal mechanism, right? Okay, so what did that mean in terms of what folks on Twitter could see? Well, for many folks, including my wife and folks, they would just see effectively nothing, that this tweet might include sensitive content. And then it says go change your settings, but a lot of folks couldn't change their settings and make it work, and a lot of folks who said, yeah, I can change the settings, but I don't want to, because I don't want it to be such that I'm suddenly seeing all the sensitive content, like the really graphic stuff or the porn. There's no sense in for me wanting to do that. And some of them would tell me that, well, I've got to make my age public, and I don't want to do that. So there was a lot of reasons why people either couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. And you can be sure that when they are labeling you sensitive content, that it doesn't just merely come along with the label. You're being deboosted in varieties of ways that we don't know. And if someone would do a search on my account, so for example, when you're typing into Twitter, and hey, I want to mention Judy, and I go at Judy or whatever the full thing is, and I might say JU, and she's the only one of just several that starts with JU that I follow, Judy will come up, right? But here you can see friend Daniel Lemar. He starts to type Mark Changizi, nothing pulls up below it, just my backup account, which I lost access to years ago. My account, my main account, doesn't come up. Now, if you can actually get my main account, sometimes you can get it once you've typed in the whole name in the normal search browser, not when you're typing a tweet. You can eventually click return, and then it'll say, hey, there may be others, and then you click that, and it says, okay, here's one that you can, it'll let you finally see it. I can't remember exactly, but you had to do some work to even see this. But when you finally see my account, it just says, it doesn't show my avatar or any of the images, it just says this profile may include potentially sensitive content. Who's going to come and follow me when you see that? So what were the consequences of this? Well, you can see here, and I've shown this before, you can see the impressions per month, monthly impressions. Impressions are how many people have viewed your tweets, rising and rising and rising, starting in March of 2020, when I started to speak out against the irrationality, the mass hysteria, the ethics of the COVID interventions and civil liberties. I started to speak out, growing and growing and growing, And then as of 2021, May, it started to fall, timed exactly with when the Biden administration was telling us proudly that we're working with social media to censor those opposed to the COVID interventions. And then you can see it falling. And since then, instead of being really high like I should have been had we had continued growth, even if it hadn't been as steep as that, it would have been way off of the scale here. Instead, I've been at a fraction of that for the last 20 months. And so that happened with this sensitive content label and whatever other sensorial mechanisms come along with it. Now, this didn't just affect my Twitter. You can see that it has devastated my growth at YouTube as well. So I was growing, well, you can see I didn't really start until November of 2020. I was on moment number 52 prior to COVID, and I didn't really want to continue just talking about science. And it took me a few months, about 6 months, to really say, no, there's so much interesting science involved in the psychosocietal issues connected all in and around masks and lockdowns and mass hysteria and so on. And so I started it then and really blew up quite nicely. I had great numbers of new subscribers per month. But again, somewhere around middle of 2021, during that year, we see that it starts to fall. What you don't usually find in growth phenomena is that when you get bigger, you grow less. Instead, as you grow larger, you typically grow even faster, even if it doesn't stay constant at a constant exponential rate, but it's just fallen down to nothing. So this is a combination of being censored at Twitter, which would of course point people towards YouTube, and I'm fairly sure that I've had independent censorship at YouTube as well, although it's harder to verify. I've had certainly YouTube videos pulled down and many of them demonetized because of their sensitive content or whatever the word they use. Now, how did I get unlabeled sensitive content? Well, it occurred to me, and I appealed a dozen times and was really harassing the folks at Twitter, and they kept on telling me, oh, well, sorry, there is no procedure, it's just permanent. Mm-hmm. And it occurred, and I reached out to Elon Musk a million times, but he's got 10 million followers. It finally occurred to me that there's this Ella G. Irwin. She's the VP of Safety at Twitter, VP of Trust and Safety, and she only has 20,000 or so followers. And so I started to CC her on tweets, and I thought, well, she might actually see this. And so a couple days later is when it flipped over, and I was finally could go to and see, oh yeah, here's where that setting was, saying I'm sensitive content. Now it's been unset, and I can set it now if I want. I actually have the ability to toggle it myself if I wish. Now this is a big step forward, but they're still censoring me. Right? And I don't know how many of you they're censoring, or whether they're looking at me more closely because I was treated as sensitive content for these political reasons. But here's a couple cases just in the last day where they are independently using some other kind of search techniques to label it as sensitive. In this case, I have a new video concerning was just 2 weeks perfectly appropriate? And I'm arguing, of course, it's not. So it's either on the basis of just 2 weeks, which I can't imagine or it's on the basis of them interacting with YouTube and their search terms within the YouTube video that YouTube has flagged and is sort of communicating to Twitter. I can't imagine Twitter's going out and processing the YouTube video itself. I guess that's possible. And then another one reaching out to Substack, where I'm talking about my book with Dr. Tim Barber last year and how it was effectively censored and its launch ruined. And that has been censored, probably because my Substack itself has been labeled as sensitive content within Twitter's system. So there's still a lot of problems to work out. There's a big step forward, but for everyone like me that's taken off of sensitive content, there's probably still dozens or hundreds of folks that still are screaming into the void, and we must fix that. That was your science moment.